only told half the story.
On her first night in the new apartment, Maya wakes to find an unfamiliar door glowing faintly in the hallway. A door, she swears, wasn't there before. The next morning it's gone, and nobody believes it was ever there at all. After a recent breakup and job layoff, Maya Reynolds moves into a historic black neighborhood in Houston, renting an affordable one-bedroom unit in a creaky old triplex. But things shift on the first night, when she sees a mysterious third door where only two should be. Her neighbors act strangely, and the landlord dodges her questions. As the door keeps reappearing each time, she hears sounds from behind it, a child crying in old rotary phone water, dripping fragments of something long buried. As Maya investigates the building's past, she discovers that someone went missing here, and the door may be more than just a haunting. It may be a passage into a hidden crime. The entire street was forced to forget. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. The first thing Maya noticed was the silence. Not the quiet of peace, but the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. She stood in the middle of her new apartment, keys still dangling from her fingers, cardboard boxes, unopened stale humidity clinging to the air like it remembered who lived here last. The place smelled of mothballs, old plaster, and something faintly sweet like molasses left in a hot drawer. One bedroom with character, the listing said. Character, sure. That's one word for it. The front room had crooked window frames and a floor that groaned like it didn't trust her. Footsteps. The kitchen, visible through a short hallway, had a red and white checkerboard floor that made her dizzy. If she stared too long, her bedroom door just off the main hallway was plain white, slightly chipped near the knob. Across from it, the bathroom door, two doors. That's it, simple layout. Maya set the keys on the counter, pulled her hoodie tighter around her waist, and told herself again what she'd told her mother. It's temporary, just for a few months, until she found steady work, until she figured herself out again. The sun slipped beneath the horizon faster than she realized. No lamps yet, just her phone flashlight. Maya brushed her teeth with bottled water and laid a sheet down over the creaky mattress the landlord promised was professionally cleaned. She didn't want to know what that meant. She fell asleep sometime after midnight, her body sore from moving, her mind too tired to be afraid. Then, tap, tap. She shot up. Silence. She sat frozen, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no traffic, not even the usual city. Then she noticed the glow. Not from the window, not her phone, a door. Across the hall from her bedroom, where the bathroom had been, but not the bathroom door. This one was different. A faded sea green color old brass knob, carved like it belonged in a Victorian parlor. The paint was chipping, a faint yellowish light poured from beneath it, like something behind it was awake. Maya reached for her phone. 2:17 now. She blinked, looked again. The door was still there. She stood slowly, breath caught in her chest. Her bare feet creaked across the floor. Each step closer made the hair on her arms stand up. When she reached for the knob, it was warm. Then suddenly, the sound of a child sobbing faint behind the door. Maya yanked her hand back. The crying stopped. She backed away, heart thudding. When she turned around to hit the light switch, nothing. The power was out. Her phone blinked once and went black, battery dead. She stood alone in the hallway, bathed in faint yellow light from a door that wasn't there when she moved in. Then she blinked, and it was gone. The bathroom door was back. White, plain closed. Maya stood there, breathing hard. She didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, Maya stood barefoot in the hallway, staring at the bathroom door like it had insulted her. It was back to how she remembered it, plain white, slightly bowed in the center. The same uneven coat of paint, same wobbly knob, the sea green door with the brass handle. Vanished like it had never existed, but she knew what she saw. And she wasn't the kind of person who hallucinated things for fun. She unlocked her phone, which mysteriously had a full battery now, despite dying hours ago, and took a photo of the hallway, just in case evidence. She even knocked gently on the bathroom door before opening it. Nothing unusual, cheap tile, damp smell, a shower. Curtain printed with faded yellow ducks from some long-forgotten discount store. Maya splashed cold water on her face and leaned into the mirror. "Get it together," she muttered. By late morning, the sticky heat outside had turned brutal Houston in June. Didn't care that she was having a mental spiral. The AC in her unit barely pushed a sigh, so she opened the small living room. Window letting in a bit of breeze and a lot of neighborhood noise. Downstairs, an older black woman with cornrows and gold hoops was watering her porch plants, talking to someone on speakerphone. Kids rode bikes past the rusted mailbox. Somewhere nearby, a bass-heavy song thumped lazily out of a window unit, vibrating the air like it was part of the street itself. It helped just a little. Later that afternoon, Maya walked to the corner store, grabbed some Essentials coffee ramen, bug spray, and decided on impulse to talk to someone in the building. She figured the lady on the first floor might know something, or at least confirm she wasn't imagining things. She knocked. It took a while, but eventually the door cracked open. "Yes," the woman said, peering at her over reading glasses up close. She looked maybe 60, face carved with time and wisdom, wrapped in a patterned headscarf. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you," Maya said. "I just moved into Unit 3 upstairs." The woman squinted. "You the one with the city accent?" "I'm from Philly." The woman said, like she already didn't trust, that, "Well, I'm Miss Evelyn." "Maya, nice to meet you." Miss Evelyn nodded once, but didn't invite her in. The smell of fried okra and something sweet drifted from inside. Maya cleared her throat. "I had a weird experience last night. In the hallway, I know it sounds strange, but have there ever been changes to the layout upstairs?" Miss Evelyn's face shifted. "Changes? Like another room? A third door? Across from the bedroom?" "I swear I saw. There's no third door," Evelyn said quickly, too quickly. "Ain't never been. I've been in this building 22 years. Maya blinked. "Are you sure?" Miss Evelyn's expression hardened. "You didn't see anything." She started to close the door. "Wait, please." There was a sound, a kid crying behind the door. It wasn't just "I said you didn't see anything," Evelyn snapped. "You new here. You got no business poking at things that don't concern you." The door shut firm, final. Maya stood there a moment, stunned. On the walk back up to her apartment, the hallway felt colder. The kind of cold that crept up your ankles and stayed too long. The creaking beneath her feet echoed louder than before. She paused halfway up the stairs. Just for a moment, she thought she heard it again. A child crying, so faint it could have been the wind or a memory. But she knew better upstairs. She paced, Googled, tried different phrases. Hallucinating doors in old apartments. Houston Triplex child missing. Ghost door crying behind wall, third door dream meaning. None of the results helped. Paranormal blogs, Reddit threads full of bored skeptics and wannabe ghost hunters. One site mentioned residual hauntings in buildings where tragedies were hidden and rooms sealed by guilt. But the most chilling was a scanned page from an old newspaper, the Houston Tribune, 1989. Headline: Child disappears from Midtown apartment. No witnesses, no leads. The picture was blurry, but the building behind the detectives looked familiar. Her building, Unit 3, the article said. Tenant claimed she never saw a thing. Maya froze. That meant someone had lived in her unit during the time of the disappearance, and someone had lied. Later that night, just before bed, she heard footsteps above her, but she was on the top floor. She stood in the hallway, phone in hand, camera ready. There were 2 doors, just like always. Then the hallway light flickered, and there it was. The sea green door. Chipped paint, brass handle, a faint yellow glow beneath. This time the crying was louder, and a voice whispered through the wood. "Help me." The voice behind the green door had sounded young. Too young to fake. too real to ignore. "Help me." Maya stood in the dim hallway barefoot and trembling, every instinct screaming at her to turn around. But her hand, traitorous and curious, rose slowly toward the brass knob. It was warm again, just like the night before, almost pulsing, like something on the other side was alive or waiting. She turned it. Click. The door cracked open with a long exhale, like the house was releasing a secret it had held too long. Inside was only darkness. Thick, dense, complete. Her phone flashlight barely pierced the edge. But what she saw made her stomach twist. A staircase. It led down. But her apartment was already on the top floor. Maya hesitated, half of her body inside the threshold, half still rooted in the hallway. The crying had stopped. Now the only sound was her breath, short, shallow, ragged. She took one step in. The door slammed shut behind her. She turned with a gasp, grabbing for the knob, but it was gone. The door was gone, just smooth, unbroken wall. Panic prickled her neck. "Okay, breathe," she whispered. She turned back toward the stairs. There was only one way forward now. Each step creaked under her way. The walls felt close, tighter than they should be. She could swear the plaster was damp, like the place had been sweating. Smells began to rise, mildew, rust, something metallic. Halfway down she heard it again. A soft giggle. Then footsteps. Running. Not toward her, across. Like a child darting from one side of the hallway to another, just below her. Her heart thumped against her ribs, like it was trying to escape. At the bottom of the stairs, she found herself in a room, but not a normal room. It looked like a child's playroom, but decades abandoned. Faded wallpaper peeled at the corners. A dusty red tricycle leaned against the wall. Toys scattered across the floor, like someone had left in a hurry. And in the far corner, a mattress stained. Small, a single spoon beside it. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. She couldn't explain how she knew, but this room wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't on any blueprint, not part of the listed square footage. It felt like it had been sealed and hidden. Suddenly, a low bang echoed behind her. She turned, nothing. Then the room shifted subtly, but enough. The shadows changed. The air thickened. She felt watched. And then a small figure ran past her. Blurry fast, no face, just a flash of red, and then it was gone. Maya stumbled back, breath catching in her throat. "Who's there?" She called out, her voice cracking. No answer. But then a whisper right by her ear. "Why'd you leave me?" She spun around. No one. She didn't realize she was crying until she wiped her face with a shaking hand. The mattress, the spoon, the child's voice, all of it too specific, too cruel. She backed toward the stairs, but the way up was no longer visible. Instead, the room. Stretched walls, shifting, bending, folding into darkness. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a memory. A trapped one. And somehow it wanted her to remember too. When Maya opened her eyes, she was lying on her apartment floor, back in the hallway, sweat clinging to her neck. Her phone blinking beside her with a low battery warning. The bathroom door stood as usual. No green door in sight. But something had changed. Her palm was dirty. She looked down and found smudges of soot and dust on her hands and under her nails, and clutched in her fist, trembling. A tiny rusted spoon. By morning, Maya had scrubbed her hands raw. No matter how hard she scrubbed, she still felt the rust under her nails. The spoon now sealed inside. A Ziploc bag on her counter felt too real, too solid to explain away as a dream. But what gnawed at her more than the spoon was the voice. "Why'd you leave me?" She hadn't left anyone. She didn't know any kids here. She just moved in a week ago. Still, the voice played on loop in her skull as she paced the apartment. She hadn't told anyone about the door. Not her mom, not any friends from back home. She barely talked to people since the layoff. She kept convincing herself she needed time. Time for what? To go crazy? By noon she decided to visit the leasing office. There wasn't one. The number on the original Craigslist listing, now disconnected. The property manager she'd signed her rental agreement with a thin, impatient man named Ronald had given her a Gmail and a burner number. She tried both. No answer. She walked across the street to a little barber shop, Nate's Fades and Shaves, where two older men played dominoes near the front window, and a younger man in an apron swept hair off the checkered floor. The older one with silver dreadlocks nodded at her new girl from Unit 3, right? Yeah, she said cautiously. I'm Maya. You don't need a haircut, do you? The other joked. We do good work, but we ain't cheap on Tuesdays. She cracked half a smile. Actually, I was hoping y'all knew something about the building across the street. The man sweeping stopped mid-sweep. The other two went quiet silver dreads, leaned back eyes narrowing. What kind of something? History, Maya said slowly. Has it always just been a triplex? The younger man put the broom down, leaned his arm on the counter. That building's got history nobody wants, he said. You saw it, didn't you? Silver dreads? Asked Maya, froze. Saw what? He pointed his chin toward her, like he already knew the door. Her blood turned to ice. You saw it, he repeated, quieter now. They always do around the third or fourth night. Who's they? Anybody who stays in Unit 3 too long, she started, then hesitated. Is it real? The man with the broom looked away. Depends what you mean by real, he said. You ask Evelyn yet? Silver dreads asked. She slammed the door in my face. That means yes, he muttered. Maya lowered her voice. What happened in that building? The three men exchanged glances. None of them spoke for a while. Then Silver Dreads sighed. 1989. Little boy went missing, real sweet one. Always wore a red hoodie, always had a toy car in his hand. Mia's chest tightened. You knew him? Everyone knew him, he said. Kenny Sorrell lived right where you do now. People said his mom was sick, real quiet type, but nobody ever proved she did anything. Maya whispered. They never found his body. The man with the broom shook his head. No cops came. Media left. Then it got quiet, and the mom left. Then the city pretended it never happened. But the room downstairs under my apartment ain't no downstairs, Silver Dreads said firmly. They sealed that up in the 90s. There ain't been a basement in that building in 30 years. Mia's stomach dropped. I was in it. He nodded like he'd expected that. The house always remembers, even when people don't. She looked down, hesitating. Then quietly, she pulled out the Ziploc bag and placed it on the counter. The rusted spoon inside gleamed under the barbershop lights. Nobody touched it. The youngest man crossed himself and walked into the back room. The others stared. That's his Silver Dreads whispered. Maya felt cold again. What does it want from me? It don't want, he said slowly. It needs. What? To be found that night. Maya didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table with the spoon beside her. The news article pulled up on her laptop. Kenny Sorrell, 6 years old. Last seen by a neighbor. No suspects, no leads. She zoomed in on the photo. There it was again, her window. Same warped frame. Same crooked tree outside. She scrolled down. A name jumped out at her. But this time there were small fingerprints smeared across the bottom, and written in the dust above the knob with the scrawl of a child. She said you'd come. The words on the door didn't move. She said you'd come. Maya stared at them until her eyes burned the cold of the hallway seeping into her bare legs. Her hand hovered over the handle, trembling. But this time she didn't open it. Not yet. She needed answers first, and she was done being afraid of the living miss. Evelyn answered her door with a firm stare and a faded housecoat. No pretense of surprise. This time I told you to leave it alone. Maya held up her phone. The screen displayed the digitized newspaper clipping. Tenant interviewed Lorraine Daniels. You knew him. Maya said quietly. You were there. You saw something. Miss Evelyn didn't look at the screen. Her eyes stayed on Mia's face. Go home, girl. Why won't you talk to me? Because what lives in that house is not for you. I'm already in it. Maya snapped. I've heard him. I've been there. That door. It's not in my head I was in a basement that shouldn't exist, and I found this." She reached into her pocket and held up the Ziploc bag with the spoon. "He left this." That changed something. Evelyn's shoulders slumped. She opened the door wider just enough. "Come in inside." The apartment was dark and still, lit only by a single lamp and the soft static of an old TV playing a rerun on mute. Everything smelled like furniture, Polish sage, and something floral. Maya sat at the kitchen table while Miss Evelyn poured tea into two mismatched mugs. "It wasn't supposed to go like that," Evelyn began, eyes unfocused. "We were all young. Poor, that building was a catchback. And rent-controlled, mostly black tenants, tight-knit. Everybody knew everybody. But that family, the Sorrels." She paused as if choosing her words. Lorraine was troubled. She wasn't a bad woman, just frayed. Used to sit out on the steps with a thermos full of gin and talk about stars that didn't exist. I don't know what all went wrong, but Kenny, he was always quiet, sweet boy, big eyes. Never cried. When he fell, Maya listened frozen. And then one day he was gone. She claimed someone came in and took him. Sighed she, blacked out, woke up with the door wide open. But there was no sign of a break-in, no struggle, just a shoe by the window and his toy car under the bed. She looked down at her mug. The cops didn't care, not really. Poor black woman with no job. They closed the file inside a week, said maybe he ran off, maybe she snapped, but nothing stuck. She moved out. A week later, new tenants moved in. Nobody talked about it again. But the basement, Maya said. There was a basement. They sealed it up after the building changed owners, said it was unstable. Water damage, but we all knew why they did it, Miss. Evelyn reached into a drawer and slid a faded photograph across the table. A small boy stood on a stoop, grinning through missing teeth, holding a plastic spoon in one hand and a red toy car in the other. Maya stared. That's him? Miss Evelyn nodded. I don't know why he's coming to you, but if that door's opening, he's trying to be found, or he's trying to warn you. Warn me about what? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You ever ask what happened to Lorraine? Maya shook her head slowly. She ain't dead, Evelyn said. Changed her name. Moved around. I hear she's back in town. Quiet, keeps to herself. Maya blinked. She's here? In Houston? Miss Evelyn nodded. She crawled forward, not standing this time, heart pounding in her ears. The door creaked open, slowly revealing that same impossible staircase leading down into a place time had abandoned. And this time there were new sounds: running water, something dripping, a whisper. She's still lying. She didn't remember standing up. All Maya knew was that one moment she was sitting on the floor, breath caught in her chest, and the next she was descending the staircase again. The green door groaned shut behind her, sealing out the world above. It was colder this time, the kind of cold that crept under your skin and settled in your bones like regret. Each step felt longer than the last. The walls seemed closer, the shadows darker, and the smell, that wet earth, rust, and something else, something sour, wrapped around her like a warning. She reached the bottom and found the room had changed. No longer a child's playroom, no mattress, no toys. Just an open rectangular crawl space across the far wall, half covered by a piece of rotted plywood. Cobwebs draped over the entrance like a veil, and they're half buried in dirt. A red toy car. Mia's knees gave a little when she saw it. She crept forward slowly, every inch of her body screaming for caution. She reached out and picked it up. The plastic was warm. She turned it over in her hand, brushing off soil. It was the kind of cheap toy you'd get in a dollar store bin, but carved into the bottom, scratched into the red plastic, with something sharp, were three shaky letters: KSR, Kenny Sorrel. Her hand trembled. She turned toward the crawl space. A soft whispering hum drifted from within, like a child humming a lullaby to themselves in the dark. The instant her fingers grazed the edge of the space, she felt something brush back. She yelped and scrambled away, heart thudding wildly. But the shape had vanished. So had the humming, The toy car dropped from her hand, rolled, stopped at the base of the stairs. And then, for the first time since she arrived, she heard footsteps overhead, upstairs in her apartment, but she lived alone. Maya burst through the green door gasping and collapsed into her hallway. She turned around, and the door was gone again. No stairs, no smell, no hum. Just the bathroom door plain and white. But the footsteps hadn't stopped. They moved steadily across her apartment toward her bedroom. She crept forward, slowly grabbing a broom from the corner of the kitchen. Not much of a weapon, but it was something. Hello? She called out, voice trembling. No answer. She moved down the hallway, heart-pounding broom. Raised like a baseball bat, the bedroom door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open with the tip of the broomstick. Nothing. The bed was untouched, the window closed. But on the wall, drawn with something black and smeared a child's handprint, Maya staggered back. And then her phone vibrated again. Another unknown number checked the lease. She stared at it confused. Her lease? She darted to her bookshelf, found the manila folder where she'd stuffed all her moving papers. Inside the lease agreement from the Craigslist post. It was standard until the last page. There in faint ink at the very bottom, a clause tenant acknowledges the presence of sealed rooms and accepts responsibility for any residual manifestations. What the hell? She grabbed the envelope. The lease came in, no return address. Then tucked inside the folds of the envelope, something she hadn't noticed before a photo old faded. It showed 3 people standing in front of the building. A young black boy in a red hoodie, a woman in a house dress beside him, and behind them, barely visible in the second-story window, a face Mia's unit, and even in the grainy image that face was hers. Maya dropped the photo. It fluttered to the floor and landed face up, the image of the building staring back at her like a threat. Her knees buckled as she lowered herself beside it, heart pounding so loud she barely registered the city sounds outside. She stared at the second-story window. The figure in the photo, it was fuzzy, distorted. But the hair, the shape of the face, the angle of the jaw, it looked like her. Not sort of, not maybe exactly like her, but the photo was dated in the bottom right corner, June 3rd, 1989. She hadn't even been born yet. By noon, she'd been to 3 different photo labs in the city. One guy barely glanced at it and muttered something about overexposed reflections. Another shrugged and called it a double exposure. But the third, a retired newspaper archivist named Mr. Lester, who still ran an independent film development shop near the museum. District took one look and said nothing for a full minute. This came from where? He asked quietly. Why? Maya said. He tapped the edge of the photo with a gloved finger. This was taken with a Minolta X. 700, same type our old staff photographers used back in the 80s. He pointed at the window. That's not a flaw. That's a deliberate frame, deliberate? Whoever took this wanted to capture that. Not the people in front of the building. The figure in the window. Mia's spine tingled. Can you enhance it? Mr. Lester gave her a look. This ain't seaside, baby, but I can clean it, brighten the graying. 20 minutes later, he returned with a printed enlarged crop of the window. It didn't help. It only made it worse. Now she could see her own eyes, her exact eyes staring straight into the camera. And there, faintly behind the glass, the green door. Back at the apartment, Maya stood in the center of her room, the photograph gripped tight in her hands. The spoon still sat on her kitchen counter, sealed in the plastic bag. The red toy car was now locked in her dresser drawer. None of it made sense. Unless she opened her laptop and searched every combination. She could think of Kenny Sorrell, Lorraine Daniels, Houston, sealed basement. Child disappearance 1989. Midtown green door hallucination haunting. She found threads, whispers, folklore. But buried in an old PDF from the Greater Third Ward Preservation Society, there was a scanned paragraph that made her skin crawl. In 1990, following the sale of a historic triplex on Crawford, street developers reported discovering a walled-off stairwell and low-level chamber beneath Unit 3. When contractors attempted excavation, A series of electrical disturbances and 3 separate injuries caused work to halt. The chamber was resealed, blueprints were revised, no permits were reissued. No permits, no report filed, no explanation. It had been sealed and forgotten, but now it wanted out. That night, as rain slicked the city in shadows, Maya sat on her bedroom floor, watching the hallway. At 2:06 a.m., the green door returned, but this time it was open. No yellow light, just dark waiting. She stood, breath caught in her throat. This time she wasn't going alone. She grabbed the photo and the spoon, stuffed them in her hoodie pocket. Then she slipped on her sneakers and walked outside, through the thick Texas air across the porch, and back to the first-floor unit. She knocked hard. After several tense seconds, the door opened. Miss Evelyn stood there in a blue nightgown, eyes bleary, but unsurprised. "You saw it again," she said. Maya nodded. "I need to find her." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "Lorraine lives 3 blocks east, brown house, blue shutters. She uses her maiden name now, Evans, but she won't talk. I'll make her." Evelyn grabbed her arm. "You better understand something," she said. "That woman's been running from whatever happened for over 30 years. You go knocking on that door, you best be ready for what she's gonna say or what she won't. I'm not scared of her. You should be." Maya walked the 3 blocks, with fire in her chest and storm clouds in her head. The brown house stood crooked on a quiet street, half hidden by a row of leaning oak trees. A porch light flickered blue shutters. A cracked walkway, wind chimes tinkled, though there was no wind. She approached and knocked once. No answer again. Still nothing. She turned to leave when the door creaked open behind her. An older black woman with hollow cheeks and thin graying hair stared back at her. Her eyes, sharp and exhausted, narrowed. When she saw Maya, "I've been waiting for you," Lorraine whispered. Then she stepped aside. "You look just like him." The air inside Lorraine's house was stale with something unspoken. Old cigarette smoke, time, and the heavy scent of jasmine oil hung in the air like a warning. The lights were dim, the walls yellowed with age and silence. A single fan whirred lazily in the corner, doing nothing to push the heat away. Lorraine Evans, once Lorraine Daniels, led Maya into the living room and motioned for her to sit. Her movements were slow, brittle, like each step cost her more than she had. Maya sat on the edge of the couch. She kept her hoodie zipped. The spoon in her pocket felt like it buzzed against her thigh. "I wasn't sure you were real at first," Lorraine said, settling into the chair across from her. Her voice was low, husky. "I dreamed of you for a long time. A girl with my son's eyes." Maya swallowed. "I'm not related to you." Lorraine's stare was unreadable. "No, but you carry him." Maya froze. "I don't understand." "You will." Lorraine lit a cigarette with trembling fingers and took a long drag. The smoke curled upward, twisting between them like a veil. "People think grief makes you weak," she said. "But grief is a fire. It burns everything soft in you, leaves only what's sharp, what's mean." "After they took Kenny, I burned all the softness I had left." "You mean after he disappeared?" Maya asked carefully. Lorraine's gaze darkened. "Don't say that he didn't disappear. He was taken by that house." Mia's throat tightened. "I saw him," she said quietly. "In the crawl space I heard him crying. He said someone left him, and then he said someone was lying." Lorraine flinched at that. "I never left him," she snapped too fast. "I never left him. They tried to say I was drunk, that I forgot to lock the door, that maybe I hurt him myself. But I didn't. I would have died for that boy." Mia's fingers curled into fists. "But you lived, and he didn't." That silence was worse than a scream. Lorraine looked away toward the window, where the streetlight buzzed against the glass like a trapped wasp. "The night before he vanished, he told me he was scared. She said he heard scratching under the floor, said there was a room behind the wall. I didn't believe him, just told him to say his prayers and sleep." Her voice cracked. "He was 6'6". Me's heart broke. "I saw the room. I walked down the stairs. I found his toy car." Lorraine blinked back tears. "I used to hear him," she whispered. "Right after we sealed the place up, I'd wake up at 2:06. Every night, same time heard him calling my name. I thought I was losing it, but I wasn't that house it never stopped remembering. Maya pulled the Ziploc from her pocket and laid it gently on the table between them. Lorraine stared at it for a long, aching beat. When she finally reached out, her hand trembled. Her fingers brushed the spoon like it might scream. This was his, she whispered. He used to tap it against the radiator while I cooked. The room felt like it sank an inch deeper into the earth. Why me? Maya asked, why am I seeing it? Why now? Lorraine's eyes lifted, glistening with something old and haunted. Because you're the first one who didn't try to forget. She took a final drag from her cigarette and crushed it into the ashtray. He's not done showing you. Maya left the house in a fog, the storm clouds thick above her head as the wind picked up. It smelled like rain and metal and endings. She turned back once Lorraine stood at the window staring down at her, not watching with fear or hope, just waiting. That night, Maya didn't sleep. She waited. At 2:06, her hallway flickered with soft yellow light. The green door was open, no hesitation this time. She stepped through and descended, but the stairwell had changed again. This time the walls were covered in handprints. Hundreds of them, small child-sized, pressed into the plaster like fossils, some smeared, some clawed. And each step she took made the crying louder. But not just one child. Now it was several. Somewhere deep below, beyond the place she'd seen, before there were more voices. More children. More missing. And on the wall, scrawled in crayon so faint it shimmered like breath on glass, was a message. She only told half the story. The staircase seemed deeper tonight. Maya clutched the railing as she descended, each handprint on the walls, pressing closer. Tighter, like the house itself was folding inward. She counted the steps as she went. 38. 45. 50. There should have been no way this many stairs could exist beneath a one-story unit. But the deeper she went, the further logic loosened its grip. The voices of the children echoed all around her, faint, distorted, overlapping in fragments. It was supposed to be a secret. She said, don't tell, we didn't want to go down. Why didn't she come back? He said we'd be safe. At the bottom of the stairwell, the space widened into a narrow corridor unfamiliar, even compared to the previous rooms. The walls were brick, now old and damp, lined with broken toys, tattered shoes, ripped drawings. Taped to the stone, every item was small, forgotten. Maya walked slowly, eyes darting between faded chalk outlines, and scribbled. Names smeared across the brick. Some she couldn't read, others were sharp and clear. Kenny Andre T. LeSean. Tyrol. Inez, age 5. Each name was a wound. Then she saw it, at the end of the hall, a steel door. Heavy, bolted shut, 4 padlocks across its frame. And on the door, scratched deep into the metal, with something ragged and desperate. We're still here. Maya reached out and touched the first lock. It was warm. Then behind a sound like paper tearing through time. She turned, the corridor was gone. She stood alone now, in a small square room with one flickering bulb above, and a table in the center, and on that table, a file folder. Old yellowed government issued. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, photographs. Police photos, images of children standing in front of chain-link fences, brick walls, empty stairwells, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped. All dated between 1982 and 1990. Case numbers filled the corners of the pages, all marked missing or unsolved, and one more word, stamped in red across the top of every file seized. Her breath caught as she flipped through the last pages. The last file had a name she recognized, Daniels Lorraine, former employee of Campbell Home for Children Facility, closed 1989. All state contracts revoked beneath it. A black and white ID badge photo, Lorraine in a nurse's uniform. Maya dropped the folder. The voices returned louder now. Urgent. She knew she worked there. She locked the door. She said it was better this way. She said the state wouldn't care. She left us. Maya backed into a corner, hands shaking, head spinning. Lorraine hadn't just been a grieving mother. She'd been staff. Back in the real world, Maya shot upright in her bed, gasping, drenched in sweat. The city outside her window was silent. Her apartment still, but her phone buzzed beside her. Another unknown number, one line of text. You know now. She ran to her bookshelf, grabbed the manila folder again, yanked out the lease papers, the property listing, every scrap of documentation. And there it was, buried in the fine print of the original Craigslist email owner history. Campbell Holdings, LLC, prior structure, former state run housing, converted 1991. Maya staggered back. The house used to be the Campbell Home for Children, a facility for state-placed kids, and Lorraine Daniels Evans had worked there, which meant she hadn't just lived in Unit 3. She helped build what was under it. Maya didn't wait. She pulled on a sweatshirt, grabbed the photo and spoon, and left the apartment. The early morning air hit her like a slap, thick with heat and the low rumble of thunder in the distance. She didn't knock this time. She banged on Lorraine's door with her fist until the porch light blinked on the door, cracked open. Lorraine didn't look surprised, just tired. You went too far, she said softly. Maya shoved the folder forward. You lied. Lorraine's eyes flicked to the papers, but her face didn't change. How many kids? Maya demanded. How many were down there? I didn't hurt them, Lorraine whispered, but you helped hide it. Silence. Lorraine's voice was barely a whisper. I tried to save them. I tried. Nia's hands curled around the folder. Then tell the truth. Lorraine stared at her for a long time. I didn't bury them, she said, but I helped cover the door, and then she stepped aside. Come in. Lorraine's house felt heavier this time. The jasmine oil scent was gone, replaced by something rawer. Maya stepped inside without speaking. The file folder was still in her hands, open to the last. Photo of Lorraine in her nurse's uniform. Lorraine moved slowly to the kitchen table. The same ashtray sat in the center. This time she didn't light a cigarette. She sat, eyes on the folder like it was an altar. I told you, she said finally. I didn't hurt them. But you knew, Maya said, voice tight. I was a night nurse, Lorraine whispered. They assigned me the Campbell home in '86. Said it was temporary. Said the state just needed to place the overflow cases. Nobody wanted those kids. They were the forgotten ones. Too old, too angry, too broken. She closed her eyes like the words alone made her bones ache. The place wasn't right. No inspections, one caseworker for every 15 kids. No heat most nights. And the man who ran it, Mr. Darnell Campbell, she paused, voice shaking. He said we had to keep things quiet. Keep the boys on the lower floors. No contact. He'd lock them in. Said it was protective isolation. He called it discipline. Maya stared. You let that happen. Lorraine shook her head violently. I didn't let it. I didn't know, not at first. But you stayed. I was broke, she snapped. I had Kenny. No childcare, no other job would take me. And every time I tried to report something, I was told to mind my place, that I'd misunderstood. They told me to be grateful. I had work at all. She swallowed hard. The kids started disappearing. They said they ran away, but I knew they hadn't. She finally looked Maya in the eye. I tried to get them out, I swear to you. I took 2 of them, Latasha and Andre. I helped them run. But Campbell found out, fired me. A week later, Kenny went missing. Maya froze. You think he was? He was a warning. Lorraine's voice cracked. I came home from my last shift and found his window open, the back door unlocked. They took him. They took my baby to shut me up. Her hands trembled in her lap. They sealed the bottom floor, told the public the building was unstable, sold the land under a shell company, renovated the top 2 units, and buried everything below. They made it vanish. Maya sat back, her chest hollowed out. All those names she whispered, all those handprints, that wasn't just Kenny, that was all of them. Lorraine nodded, eyes glistening. I hear them too, she whispered. Every night I've heard them for 36 years. She opened a drawer beside her and pulled out a box, small, metal, rusted. Inside were dozens of items, buttons, crayon drawings, barrettes, a broken watch, a baby's sock. They leave things behind. When they're ready to be found, Mia's hands shook as she took out a photo from the box. A girl 8 years old, standing in front of the triplex, with a doll missing its eyes. She came to me last week. Lorraine said, left her name on my mirror, Inez. Maya looked up sharply. That name was on the wall. In the crawl space, Lorraine nodded. Then she's ready back at the apartment. Maya didn't sleep. She waited. At 2:06 a.m. the door opened. But this time it wasn't green. It was red. And it pulsed like a heartbeat. Maya stepped through carrying Lorraine's box, the spoon, the toy car, and the photograph of the building. The stairwell was different again. The bricks were clean, now new, and each step she took brought with it the sound of children behind the walls. Not crying, whispering like they were telling secrets. The corridor opened into a large chamber she hadn't seen before, a circular room beneath. The house walls curved inward, covered in chalk drawings, faces, names, suns with frowns, rain falling on houses, in the center a pit. Covered by a grate, Maya moved slowly, crouched, and looked down. Wood toys, torn bedding, bones, tiny, countless. She gasped and staggered back. And that's when the lights flickered on overhead. Hanging from the ceiling by rusted chains were broken fluorescent fixtures. They buzzed with life for the first time. And in the corner of the room stood a man, not real, a memory. Flickering like a tape, running too slow, tall, balding, holding a clipboard and a belt, his face twisted in a permanent scowl. Maya stepped closer, Mr. Campbell, she whispered. The figure turned toward her, mechanically, like it had been waiting for decades. And in that moment, every voice in the room rose up like a wave. He was the one. He kept you as here. She tried to save you. Tell them. Tell them we were here. Maya dropped to her knees, pulled out her phone, started recording. Not just the room, the drawings, the grate, the bones, the faces flickering into form around her. One by one the children appeared. Kenny first, then Inez, then Andre, LaShawn, Tyrell. Dozens they stood in a ring around her, silent, glowing faintly, faces solemn but no longer afraid. Kenny stepped forward and placed his hand on her chest and whispered, we remember you. Then the light burst. Maya woke in her hallway, flat on her back, covered in chalk dust, her hands clenched around the spoon. But this time the door hadn't vanished. It was still there, still red, still open. And from downstairs, the voices were no longer crying. They were calling someone else, calling the world. By sunrise, Maya wasn't alone. The house was still, but the air felt charged like electricity. Ran through the walls. Her phone had recorded 37 minutes of footage, most of it static and shadows. But in the final few seconds, something clear had emerged. A face, Kenny's. His eyes, his voice whispering directly into the mic. Tell them we were real. The next day moved like water. Maya sat at a cafe with trembling hands, watching the video over and over. The audio flickered, but the message was undeniable. The names, the pit, the bones, the red door. She emailed the file to herself, backed it up on a USB, uploaded copies to cloud drives she hadn't used in years. She wasn't taking any chances. Then she made the call. Jordan Lane. Black reporter, local, quietly relentless. Worked the city beat, but always sniffed around stories the paper didn't want to run. Maya had seen her stories online about police files gone missing, about a woman who discovered her brother had been in solitary for 12 years straight. She called Jordan, answered on the second ring. This Maya Reynolds? I got your email. You watched it? I watched it 5 times. That building is still up? Yes. A pause. Where are you? Jordan arrived wearing all black camera gear in tow, her short coils tied up in a bun. She looked sharp, focused, angry. Even before hearing the full story, I recognized that address, she said. Campbell. Home was shut down after a whistleblower case supposedly for fire code violations. Maya shook her head. No, they buried children. Jordan looked around the apartment and walked toward the hallway. She stopped at the now faintly glowing red door. Is that it? Don't touch it yet, Maya warned. It changes depending on who's watching. Jordan raised a brow, but nodded. I brought more than cameras, she said. I pulled property records, blueprints, financial filings. Guess what? Campbell Holdings, LLC, has 6 other properties in Houston, all acquired within months of state closures. Mia's heart stuttered. You think they did this elsewhere? Jordan nodded grimly. I think this is the first one where the dead finally got someone to listen. They filmed everything. The stairwell, the names, the pit. Jordan was skeptical, at first until the temperature dropped and her camera caught movement in an empty corner. Then the lights flickered. Then a handprint appeared on the inside of her lens. And Jordan, for the first time in a decade of investigative work, whispered holy sh*T. Maya stood in the center of the circle. The children were there again. They watched. Kenny stepped forward, then pointed not at her this time, but at the wall. The bricks trembled and then began to crack. The room shifted again. A passage opened, not a door. A tunnel, carved in dirt, lined in rotted wood, long, straight, and echoing. Jordan stared into it, mouth agape. What is this? Maya looked at the spoon in her pocket. It's where they were taken. They followed the tunnel for nearly a city block, and at the end, another sealed door. This one newer, metal marked with a property code CHG4. Jordan's voice cracked as she read it aloud. I saw that code on the zoning map. She said it's listed as a condemned warehouse. Maya turned to her. Then they connected the buildings. Jordan raised her camera again. They were moving kids. By the time they emerged from the crawl space back into Unit 3, the red door had vanished. Only the bathroom remained. Maya collapsed on the floor, exhausted. Jordan sat across from her, clutching the USB drive like it might vanish. I have to go, she said quietly. I know. I'll run it through legal, through editors, but I'll publish it with or without them. Maya nodded. Jordan hesitated at the door. What happens now? She asked. Maya looked down at her hands, still dusty with chalk and time. They'll come back tonight, she said. All of them? No, Maya whispered. The ones who are still missing. That night the wind howled through the broken vent outside the triplex. Clouds rolled over the city, lightning flickered across the skyline, like shutter snaps from a memory no one wanted to claim. Maya waited by the hallway 206A. The walls vibrated, but no door appeared. Instead, the window cracked open by itself, and across the glass scrawled in condensation, the truth doesn't live in shadows. Then a low knock at the front door. Maya rose, barefoot, heart hammering. She opened it. Lorraine stood on the porch, face pale, hands empty. They came to me tonight, she said. Maya stepped aside. They're not done with us, Lorraine whispered, and neither is he. Lorraine stood inside the doorway, like a woman dragged backward through time. The rain soaked the porch behind her. Thunder cracked somewhere deep over Houston, and Maya, silent and barefoot, watched the woman who had once built the walls, now trembling around them. They came to me tonight, Lorraine said again. Kenny, too. He stood at the foot of my bed. Maya didn't ask what he said. She already knew. They said you have to open it. Lorraine added. Maya nodded. I know the triplex was quiet. The neighbors asleep, but the air inside Unit 3 pulsed the way a room does when it knows a secret is about to be spoken aloud. At exactly 2:06 a.m. the wall split open. No door, no color, no glamour this time. Just brick and wood peeling back to reveal the staircase, cold, endless, expectant. Maya walked forward with Lorraine beside her, slow but steady. They descended together, no flashlight needed. The path lit itself with a pale, unnatural glow that neither questioned. When they reached the pit, the children were already waiting. Not ghosts, memories made flesh. Kenny stood nearest, toy car in hand, red hoodie, bright as blood. He looked up at Lorraine. You came back, he said. Tears streaked her face. I'm sorry. I didn't sooner. Kenny stepped forward and placed the car in her hand, then nodded toward Maya. She's the one. Maya opened the small box Lorraine had given her. One by one she placed the tokens inside it around the room. The spoon, the baby sock, the photograph, the drawings, and finally the chalk. The children stepped forward. Each took a piece of chalk and began writing. Their names on the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor. They wrote in silence, but it sounded like a roar. Maya turned to Lorraine. "You buried them once," she said. "Help me dig them back up." 1 week later, the story broke. Front page of the Houston Chronicle: secrets under Crawford whistleblower uncovers hidden basement possible graves at former children's home. Jordan Lane's reporting triggered a flurry of investigations. By Monday, the property was sealed off. Forensic teams in hazmat suits hauled ground penetrating radar and tools down into the stairwell. Maya had shown them. It didn't take long before bones were recovered, human small dozens. State records long thought destroyed surfaced in the wake of pressure from advocacy groups. Names, files, transfer orders that were never fulfilled. Missing persons reports from the late 80s connected to foster placements under Darnell Campbell's care. Campbell himself had died in 2002, but the state of Texas issued a formal acknowledgement of gross negligence, concealment, and abandonment of duty. It wasn't justice, but it was truth. 3 months later, the triplex was torn down. The city planned a garden in its place, a memorial space funded by donations and protest. They called it Kenny's Field. There was a plaque by the gate. It read, "For the voices who were never heard, the children who were never named, and the walls that couldn't forget." Maya stood at the edge of the field, fingers brushing the names etched into the plaque. Kenny Inez Andre LaShawn Tyrell, and 17 others identified through DNA files and memory. She didn't live in Unit 3 anymore. She didn't need to. The house was gone, but the truth stayed. And sometimes, just sometimes, when she passed by on a warm night, the wind carried the faintest sound: laughter. What you just heard wasn't the full story. It was the part someone tried to bury, the part that didn't fit the headline, the part where a person, not a suspect, was lost in the process. This case showed us what happens when the system moves too fast or not at all, when suspicion weighs more than truth, when justice shows up late or never. But here's the thing. If these stories don't leave us asking questions, they'll keep repeating with different names. So if this one meant something to you, don't just move on. Talk about it, question it, pass it on, because silence protects the wrong side of history. And sometimes the only thing standing between truth and erasure is someone who chooses to care. Like, share, comment. Let the next chapter begin with awareness, not regret.